Hi, this is Helena and I will show you 5 cases and principles on building dynamic loops in WordPress from the simplest to the complex using JetEngine. If you're only starting to use JetEngine, this is extremely important information for you. But if you already use it for a long time, check the time codes and probably you will find something useful as well. I will show you how to create a basic dynamic post loop and discuss how it is built under the hood. Use custom queries with any loop template. Use list and grid injections. Mix and match different loop templates and queries. Incorporate HTML-based loop templates into your builder pages. First, let's briefly clarify the definition of a content loop. It's not a WordPress specific, but a general concept used in any system that works with dynamic, database-driven data, regardless of the CMS and programming language. So a content loop is a repeatable structure that iterates over a set of data and outputs each item using the same layout. In practice, this means some data is retrieved from a database based on a query that we've defined. Then the loop goes through each item one by one and renders them using the same template. So you don't build every element manually, but define the structure and query once, and it gets repeated for every item. This is how loops look, and they're used everywhere when you see a list of products, events, latest posts, news, portfolio items, and so on. Now the important part, the loop itself does not define what data it works with. It only handles the repetition. It's a piece of code that says, give me a list of items and I will process them one by one until there is nothing more to show. So where do these data items come from? They come from a query. A query defines what exactly should be retrieved from a database and under what conditions. For example, let's look at this WooCommerce shop. A query specifies a list of items, accessories, defines which category they belong to, all subcategories in the accessories category, sorted by recommended, and the quantity is all items. Then which fields should be shown, the product image, size, price, variations, and add to favorites button, and the permalink to open the product page when I click this item. There could be many more fields, of course. All of these fields and data are controlled by a query for this product loop. So if we break it down, a content loop is made up of 3 main parts. The query prepares a collection of items, the loop structure iterates over that collection, and the template defines how each item is displayed. The loop is inserted into a page, and this page template in its turn defines the background, number of columns, and so on. That's why when we talk about WordPress loop builders and choosing the best one, there are 2 important components to consider. The query builder, to properly define what should be displayed in which order with all the options and details we need, and the template builder, to display these items properly. Many popular visual builders offer quite good templating tools, but very poor query builder functionality where you can choose only a post type and a category and maybe something else. I will not point fingers at particular commercial builders. We can just have a look at the block editor and its built-in loop builder, just to give you an example. Here I can define a post type, then define a taxonomy, author, keywords which are not very useful in real life, and formats which are quite outdated as well. Then set up the order and define what to do with the sticky post, and that's it. Many Visual Pro builders offer more options, of course, but are still limited. And what if I want to display posts only with certain custom field values, or published only during a particular period of time, or exclude the posts that are already on this page, which is important if I set up a related post sections. And that's why in this video I will talk about JetEngine and its Loop Builder feature, which offers the most powerful visual query builder on the market, which allows you to define every little detail for your query. And when it comes to the template editor, it has it as well, which doesn't come with one more builder to bloat your site, but uses the one you already have on your website. As of now, it supports Elementor, Bricks, Block Editor and Divi. Also, JetEngine supports Twig for those who use custom frameworks or just want to make their loop templates super lightweight, because you can then insert them into pages made with other supported builders. With all that being said, now let's dive into the JetEngine's Loop Builder. JetEngine's Loop Builder is a combination of a query editor, a loop template called listing template, and a final grid, slider, table or calendar. Whichever layout you choose, JetEngine supports them all. This is the sequence. You build a basic loop template called listing template for posts, terms, users, and so on. There you can specify a post type or taxonomy. So if you need to show all the posts of this post type, you can skip the next step. Then create a query in Query Builder, choosing what exactly you want to display. For example, posts of a specific category created by a specific author within a certain time period. Then, using a listing grid widget, you display this post loop and apply the custom query you've created. So you can combine basic listing templates and queries, mix and match them, which is really convenient. Let's build a very simple but most frequently used loop template for custom post types. Here I have a property post type created with JetEngine, and it has many custom fields, and some of them I will display in the listing template. To create a loop template or listing template as it's called in JetEngine, go to JetEngine, listings/components, add new. For listing source, choose posts in my case, then the properties post type, also in my case, give it a name and choose an editor, Elementor in my case. But the process is the same for Bricks, Divi and Block Editor, so just follow the same workflow if you use one of those builders. Here I have a blank canvas, and remember it's for designing just one loop item that will be repeated in the grid. First I want to click the listing item settings, and here I have my post type. I can change it if needed, and don't forget to save and reload the page if you did it. Then I want a proper preview for my loop item where I'm editing it, as I will definitely not use full width, so I will choose a preview width of about 400 pixels. Now, if you want to make the whole item clickable, switch on this toggle. There are plenty of options here for the link. It can be a permalink or something else, for example a jet pop-up, and here you can choose the pop-up. Also, you can set up link attributes here, area label and link prefix. But what I like the most is that you can add query arguments. In simple terms, they let you dynamically pass certain data to the next page via URL arguments. Let's move on to building an actual loop template. So here I want to display a property title, featured image and some data from meta fields. To add a post title, which is the property name, I can either use a title widget with dynamic tag or a dynamic field widget by JetEngine. It's up to you. Then I'm adding a dynamic image field to display a featured image. It has a lot of settings for lazy loading and for image sizing as well. I always make the width 100% so the image can be resized with the template and fill the whole container, even if it's a tall image. In case you don't want to make the whole thing clickable, but make the image clickable, choose this linked image option in the permalink from the drop-down. Next, I want to display an address, so I will use the dynamic field widget. And so we'll move the title above as it looks much better. Then come the amenities, and I will use the icon list widget for them. Here, using the dynamic tag, then JetEngine custom field, I will display the number of rooms, beds, and the maximum number of guests. Obviously, add matching icons and style them a bit. Now I want to add a country, which is not a custom field but a category. So I use the dynamic terms widget and simply choose the right one in the properties post type. I will style it a bit using the absolute positioning to put it over the image. And because JetEngine has seamless compatibility with all Crocoblock plugins, I want to display this properties rating by the Jet Reviews plugin. It's already installed and set up here for properties. By the way, it's super easy and fast to set it up. So I want to display an average rating for this property, so I will drag the rating widget and choose the Jet Reviews average rating. Finally, I want to add a super cool and useful element here, which is Add to Favorites. JetEngine has this module, using which even non-logged-in users can add things to their favorites. Make sure this module is activated in JetEngine. Then open the data store settings and create a new data store. I've already done it, it's very fast and intuitive. The data will be stored in cookies in my case. Switch on the Count Items toggle, and there are more settings if you need them. Let's get back to the listing template, and here I will add this Data Store button widget. Select the data store, and you can either use some text or an icon. I will use only an icon, style it a bit, and my listing template is actually ready. You can definitely add more fields if needed. A very important element that I didn't include here but is often added is a button to open the properties page. I left it out because of my design and because the whole item is already clickable. But I will add it just for demonstration now. So you have a choice. You can either use the basic Elementor button and choose the post URL here, or you can use the Jet Elements button as it has some cool hover effects to choose from. But I'd like to focus on the most versatile option, which is the Dynamic Link widget by JetEngine. Certainly you can style it as a button or just a link, but the real power of this option comes from its settings. I briefly mentioned it when talking about making the entire listing template clickable, but let's return for a moment to query arguments. This lets you pass data from existing custom fields to the next page via the URL, and then use it to populate forms or display their values on the front end. If you switch on the Query Arguments toggle, it already has this post ID key and a macro for a value. And in case you want to pass a certain field value from the post selected from the drop-down here, for example rooms, and then write a key, you can write whatever word you want, and the field value macro here. So it will pass the number of rooms in the URL when you click this link. So the link will have this properties permalink, and you will see the key and the number of rooms instead of this macro. I cannot really see much practical application for this particular case, but in general this feature is very powerful and practical, especially when you use the dynamic link on templates or individual pages. Other than passing field values, it's a very practical thing for end-to-end analytics, UTMs, and dynamic data in general. I will leave a link in the description to the very detailed guide on query variables and the most popular use cases. What is super important is that if you add buttons here or make other elements clickable, you should make the whole item not clickable. Otherwise it will not work and will cause a mess. So switch it off in the listing settings here. Finally, as it's a property, you might be wondering where the price field is. I actually didn't want to draw much attention to this specific case, as this video is about the loop builder in general. But in case you need it, booking prices should be handled by a dedicated plugin, JetBooking. I already use it on the website and already have the property prices set up. Pay attention that the price is not a simple custom field of this post, like the number of rooms or the address, but a jet booking specific field. The best way to display it is to use a widget and a dynamic tag, for example the icon list. Find the jet booking and select the price per day/night. Perfect, the template is completely ready and it's time to add query settings and display the full grid on the front end. Those who are new to JetEngine might be wondering why Query Builder has a dedicated interface. The main reason is that the Query Builder in JetEngine is incredibly powerful and includes all possible query options. It would be difficult to fit it into the Builder interface without sacrificing either functionality or performance. There are actually some query settings that are rather legacy now, since using the Query Builder is a much more solid approach. It allows you to reuse and cache queries, combine them with different loop templates, and control everything from one place. So here, add a new query, name it properties in my case, and here I want to display the properties post type. I want only properties that belong to the house and villa categories. So here I choose taxonomy, property type, fields slug, and insert the house slug copied from the category. Then one more time and add the villa slug. It's important not to forget the relation, which should be or in this case, either house or villa. In the query preview, I can see the results, 10 results. Then I want to display only properties published in 2026. So in the Date tab, I simply type 2026 and instantly can see that the result number has narrowed to 8. There are plenty of other options to choose from: meta fields, authors, and even a geo search to display only posts that belong to a particular area for a map template. Save the query and let's proceed to the final fun part. This is my brand new page called All Properties, where I will add all my posts. To do it, drag and drop the List and Grid widget, and for Bricks, Divi and the blog editor, the process is basically the same. Here choose the listing template you've just created, and here we have it, as simple as that. Here I can set up a number of columns, a number of posts, change the layout to masonry grid, or make column height equal. The use as an archive template will not work here as it's a page, and this is an option for a category template. Next, there are query settings, because now I can see all the posts that belong to the properties post type. So these query settings are legacy. And we've just created the query with Query Builder, so what I need to do is simply switch on the custom query toggle and choose this query from a drop-down. And instantly the number of posts has changed to 8 according to my query. Now let's have a look at the sliders section. Here you can turn your grid into a slider in one click. You can choose from a classic or a scroll slider with all the settings. And in the styling tab, you can style every little detail of the grid or slider. And if you want to get back to editing your loop template, you can click here and proceed with setting up and styling individual fields, and then go back to your grid, which is very convenient. Here you have a load more option, which can be an infinite scroll or a load more button. So I should add a button, give it an ID, and then type this ID here. A few words about pagination. It can be implemented as well, but by using the JetSmart Filters plugin. Drop the pagination widget by JetSmart Filters. You have control settings here. And open the Query Builder again. In the Pagination tab, set up the number of posts per page. I will set 6. And here we have it. If you don't use pagination, don't forget to remove the number of posts per page in your query settings. The Listing Grid widget has a very cool feature called Listing Injections. It's a great way to dynamically improve your layout. To switch this feature on, activate this module in the JetEngine settings first. Now you can use 2 or more listing templates on your page according to certain conditions. Switch on the Inject Alternative Listing Item toggle, and in the settings choose an alternative listing template. Here you have condition settings. Every n item and the number, let's say 3. So every third item will have the alternative template instead of the main one. A cool thing here is that you can also control a column span to make it fill the entire row or part of it. Then the condition can be more specific. Choose the Depend on Item Meta Field Value option. And here, let's say I want to display different styling only for items with a number of rooms greater or equal to 4. I've already created a listing with this 4 big groups badge, so I will choose it. And now we will advertise the properties with over 4 rooms. There are more settings here to set up depending on the term, taxonomy, or post type. Also, like this, you can add more than one alternative template. But that's not all. If you want to display posts that have a date field in a calendar format, just activate this module and use the instructions. But it actually has the same workflow of a listing template and a query. You can display items on a map. Also, you can display them as a dynamic table or even a chart. Now let's pause for a moment to discuss mixing and matching various loop or listing templates and queries. So this is my all properties page and I want to reuse this loop template, but for showing the related items in the single property template. Here. So the existing loop item design works well for me, but I definitely need different query conditions, those which will show related items. So let me create a new query called Related Properties, the post type property, and I want my related properties to belong to the same category. So here in the Taxonomy tab, I choose the taxonomy, property type, term ID, and then I need the current term where the current property belongs to. For example, I have this Indonesian villa here, and I want to display only the same property type, villas in this case, as related items. So I click this database icon to get a list of macros and choose the current term one, and then select the taxonomy, property type. Here I can have a preview, and because it's about a particular property and what will be displayed here, I should insert the URL in the preview from page. And this is the result count, 5 items, because I have 5 villas on my website in total. But here I can see that my current villa is in the related list as well, and I don't want it to be there because I'm literally on its page. So open the post end page, post not in, and choose the current ID, as simple as that. And the result count is 4 now, as the current villa got excluded. What if I want to display not only villas, but villas of the same country, Indonesia? Go back to the Taxonomies tab and add a new condition, the same settings as the previous one, but choose the country term from the drop-down. And here in the relation field, don't forget to choose either and or. If I choose and, it will display only villas located in Indonesia, so after excluding the current villa, the count is 3. If I choose or, the result count is 11 because it shows all the properties belonging to villa and Indonesia terms. Let's save the query and add the existing listing template to the single property template and apply the query we've just created. Let's turn it into a slider, and remember this is a template, so to see if the result count is correct, choose the test post in the preview settings. Reload the page. And yes, we have 4 items here, just like in the query preview. Here we can change a template to another one, but keep the existing query. So this is how you can have centralized control over the results, which is especially important if you have many sections like this across your website. You can definitely use another setup to display this information, for example, to display related items on a map. Just drag and drop the map listing widget, but first make sure your map module is activated. Specify the address meta field name and apply the current query, so we have the related items on a map. Of course, you should connect Maps API, and there are more settings for pop-up, user location, and styling, of course. Here is a question you may have about listing templates and queries. So when we build a listing template, there is a source called Query Builder. But in this video, I've shown a method when I first built a listing template for a post, so-called basic template, and then added different custom queries on top of it when I need them. But then why do we even have this option to use a query directly as the source? The answer is simpler than it seems. It's just another option you can use. It's especially handy when working with SQL queries or merged queries, where using posts, users, or terms as the source isn't the most straightforward approach. However, you can just use it as a base if you want, just like the post source or user source. For example, I can choose the only cottages query as a source. It has only properties that belong to the cottage category. And by default, if I just insert the listing built for it, I will see only cottages. But if I then apply a custom query that fetches, let's say, only villas, it will override that and I will see only villas or whatever you set in your query, which will be applied in the custom query section. Finally, let's talk about the Twig editor for listing templates by JetEngine. So now when everyone is talking about vibe coding, Cloud Code, and other AI tools, and custom HTML templates that can be generated for you in minutes, you can really take the most of this feature. Twig is a templating language that lets you build clean HTML, CSS, and JavaScript layouts and insert dynamic data without writing messy PHP code. The way JetEngine added it makes it even easier to work with, as you can use the advantages of JetEngine dynamic feature quite visually. To start building with Twig, go to JetEngine Performance tab and make sure that the Timber Twig toggle is enabled. If you do it for the first time, you should install the plugin first. Just click here, save the configuration, and now go to JetEngine Listings Components and add a new listing, choose the source, and in the listing view choose Timber/Twig. So here you can start from presets, but I've already added some HTML and CSS to design a template for my posts. Here in settings, you can change a source if needed. So the fun part starts when we add the dynamic data here, because this is a loop template, so it must be dynamic. Let's start from the top. So here I have a place for the post link. Click dynamic data, dynamic URL, permalink. Then hit reload preview. It doesn't get refreshed automatically when you edit HTML. And see, now we have the image and title clickable. Let's fetch the image, dynamic data. Here you should choose default, post, and post thumbnail. Now the title, dynamic data, and you can use JetEngine dynamic data title. The author, dynamic data, default, post author ID. But we don't need the ID, of course, we need a name. So click the Add Filter to Result button, JetEngine Callback, and choose Get User Data by ID. And here we have admin. By the way, these callbacks are so helpful in many ways. They excerpt my posts don't actually have such a field, so I will have to trim the content. Make sure the module Trim Stream Callback is activated in JetEngine settings. And now, dynamic data, content, add filter. I'll choose Trim Text by Characters, 300 characters, and this is what we have. A couple of words about CSS. Here you have a list of existing color variables. In my case, they were saved in Elementor. So here you can just click this variable and insert the color. In case you want to add some custom JavaScript to your template, use your favorite code snippet plugin. Now I can create a page and insert this listing template just like any other using the listing grid widget. And this way you can insert it into Elementor, Bricks, Divi, or block editor, whatever you use for building your pages. As a result, you get the cleanest possible DOM structure, and there are no extra wrappers that builders often add. So JetEngine offers you so many ways to create dynamic loops and fetch exactly what you need from a database using the powerful query builder. If you like to build with AI, JetEngine has an MCP server and a command center to integrate your AI tool and have full control over the data you expose to it. Thank you for your time, happy building, and join us in the next video.